Hi everyone, my name is Melissa from Inspire Me ASAP. I'm so excited to share with you today a book that I wrote called How Xander Became a Young Author and How You Can Too. I wrote this book because I noticed that at the beginning of every school year, I would have my second graders come up to me and probably no joke about 10, 20 times a day, I would hear the words, Miss Kozerski, how do you spell? Miss Kozerski, I want to spell the word. Miss Kozerski, how do I spell? Over and over and over again. I needed a creative way to teach my students how asking the teacher how to spell words is not the best spelling strategy. So with that being said, let's begin. Xander sat at his desk with a blank page in front of him and his pencil in his hand. Mrs. Ponch has challenged the class to write about their favorite weekend activity. The other students were furiously writing down their ideas, but Xander just sat there. He did not have a favorite weekend activity. He loved to wake up on a Saturday morning and play video games with his dad. Mom would make the best pancakes or waffles every Saturday morning. They would sit down together as a family to eat waffles. Sometimes Mom would buy whipped cream to go on waffles or pancakes. Yum. Those were the best Saturdays. Xander really wanted to write about his favorite weekend activity, but he was nervous about making a spelling mistake. His favorite weekend activity had to do with waffles, but he had no idea how to spell the word waffles. He could just spell pancakes no problem because it was easy as just putting the word pan and the word cake together. But waffles? That was a little bit trickier. How do you spell waffles? He turned to Emma, who sat next to him. Hey, Emma, do you know how to spell waffles? Emma looked up from her writing and smiled. Nope, but maybe try to clap out the syllables. Xander gave her a confused look. What are you talking about? Emma said as she got her hands ready to clap. Oh, you know, like birthday has 2 syllables. Fam-i-ly has 3 syllables. Waffle has 2 syllables. Try to sound out waff and then oz. Does that help? Xander looked kind of glum. I guess. Thanks. Xander turned to his other side and looked at Sarah. Hey, Sarah, do you know how to spell waffles? Sarah looked up from her writing and smiled. Nope. What word sounds the same? Maybe you can spell waffles because it looks like the word awful. That was one of our spelling words last week. Xander smiled back. That's a good idea. Thanks, Sarah. Xander then wrote his first sentence. On Saturday morning, we eat waffles. Waffles are my... ... Xander stuck the eraser of his pencil inside his mouth and looked up. He didn't know how to spell the word favorite. He looked at Brandon again. Hey, do you know how to spell the word favorite? He didn't even look up from his work. He just pointed at the word wall and said, Dude, it's one of our popcorn words. It comes up all the time. Just copy it down from the word wall. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Thanks, Xander said. Brandon looked up from his friend and smiled. Are you writing about Saturday morning waffles? Your mom seriously makes the best waffles. I know. You'll have to come over again soon so we can have some, Xander said. Agreed. I love her waffles. Brandon turned back to his work, and Xander copied the word favorite off of the word wall. Now his paper read, On Saturday morning, we eat waffles. Waffles are my favorite food. My mom makes the best waffles in the world. Sometime Mom gets whipped cream to put on our waffles. One time she made the waffles the shape of a... Oh, shoot. Xander didn't know how to spell the word dinosaur. He turned back to Sarah and said, Hey, do you know how to spell the word dinosaur, Sarah? Sarah shook her head. Nope. Why don't you just try to stretch out the word? Just write down the sounds that you hear. Can't you just stretch it out for me? Xander begged. Just then, Mrs. Ponch walked by and said, Xander, if you don't try spelling the word by yourself, you're never going to learn. Xander looked down and the paper and started to stretch the word out. He wrote the sounds that he heard and started with dine. That part was easy. He then added a us, and now he had dinus. But the or sound at the end, that was kind of tricky. There could be many different combinations of letters. He decided to just take a guess. He wrote down an O-R, or. Now the word looked like dinosaur. Good job, Xander. I do not expect perfect spelling. Instead, I'm proud that you stretched out the word and you wrote the sounds that you heard. Mrs. Ponch said, you are using the spelling strategies that I have taught you. Excuse me. The spelling strategies are going to make you a smart writer. Xander gave Mrs. Ponch a big smile. Thanks, Mrs. Ponch. And with that, he turned back to his paper, feeling more confident. Now that he had his confidence in his writing ability, the possibilities were endless. What would he write next? He had so many ideas in his head, he could not wait to get started. But that is not the end of the story. In fact, this is just the beginning. That's because Xander wants to inspire you to become a writer. Xander knows that you will not ask your friends. You are not going to ask your teacher how to spell a word. Instead, you are going to use spelling strategies. Xander knows that you will stretch out the sounds that you hear, clap out the syllables, and think about the words. Think about what words sound the same. Most importantly, Xander knows that you will fall in love with writing, just like he did. Boys and girls, you are a young author. What will you write about today? And then at the very end, I have my students on that laminated page sign the promise. And the promise says that I am going to use my spelling strategies. After I read this story, I then create an anchor chart with my students and I explicitly demonstrate and teach what it looks like to do some of these spelling strategies as I'm writing. So for example, what does it look like? What does it sound like to try stretching out the sounds that you hear? That might be one mini lesson. What would it look like and sound like to clap out the syllables, to think about what words sound the same? I hope that you enjoy reading this story with your students.